my name is Julianna and I am a junior this year, if you don't know. And today my testimony will be about how I strengthened my relationship with Christ and what you can do to strengthen yours. So, to start at the beginning, I have been a Seventh-day Adventist practically my whole life. My parents taught me about Christ when I was younger. I was taken to nursery school, at church, and gone through all the small little classes that you do as you go through church. And like most young kids, I never really felt compelled to go to church. I would just go and hang out with my friends. It was kind of an excuse. And as I started to get older, I was encouraged by pastors and other elders to start taking baptismal classes. And other kids my age, they were also asked to do the same. So we never really asked as a group of kids. We were just kind of thrown into these classes when we were young. So as I look back at it now, I probably wasn't ready to be in these baptismal classes, but nevertheless, I was in it, and I never felt alone because I had my friends, so it was kind of like a group activity that we were all doing together. Also at this time, I wasn't really doing much in church. Well, I was young, of course, but I participated in youth choir and youth Sabbath. That was about it. I wasn't doing anything substantial, which is fine because I was still young. And as I continued to take these baptismal classes, I thought I was growing my relationship with Christ. I was trying to pray every day and keep a prayer journal like they say to do in some baptismal classes. Some of you might have done this as well. And as I come to realize now, I was just kind of walking through the steps of the baptismal class. I wasn't really taking any of it to heart. And yeah, I probably wouldn't do that again today. Today I would have probably done it differently and made sure that I was ready to take this baptismal class before I was thrown into it with my other friends. So when the day came for all the children to be baptized, including myself, I remember being really, really happy. When you're a kid, you kind of understand baptism as the gateway of getting you into heaven, because that's what Jesus did. So I thought that that would be my ticket to getting into heaven. When I was 13, I got baptized at 13. And I was like, okay, so this is how I'm going to get in. I'm going to be baptized, and then I'm going to have a foot in the door, so I'll be going to heaven straight away. Like, no problem. And then after I was finally baptized, I felt this high. I was so excited. I was like, okay, finally, it's done, it's happened, and it's over. And I tried to keep up with my praying and writing in my prayer journal, and then after some time, it just started to lessen and lessen. I started to do it less and less and less. So weeks would go by, and I wouldn't be praying, nor would I be writing in my prayer journal. And that high that I felt the day that I had been baptized was just starting to go away and just lessen and lessen and lessen. And that time was really tough for me because I started to feel more and more alone, and I started doubting whether I should have been baptized in the first place and whether God was telling me that I wasn't right or whether I shouldn't be going to heaven. And it wasn't great. And so I started back into my old routine, like I was going to church, just going and just not really paying attention and not interacting with the sermon and trying to understand it. So the act of being baptized was just kind of pushed into the back of my mind. I kind of forgot about it after some time. And after that, I was going through the motions like I usually did. I would go to church every week, hang out with my friends, go home, and then start a new week. And then one week, I went to church, and I hung out with my friends like I did every weekend. And I was listening to the announcements before the sermon, and I heard that a nonprofit organization called Unity for Orphans had invited our church, or 20 members of our church, to accompany them to Baja, Mexico, to an orphanage down there. And I just remember feeling so excited, and I was completely interested. Like I wanted to go. Right when I heard it, I wrote down in my phone, like I typed a little message to myself, and I said, remind mom about Unity for Orphans, because I really wanted to go. So I went home that day and I told my mom, and I was like, hey, I really want to go on this mission trip. And it's not far. It was only right past Tijuana, Mexico, and if you guys don't know, it's right over the border, and I think it's about 10 miles from Tijuana. It's Baja. And she said if I was completely serious, that she would take me and my brother. And I said yes. I was like, I am completely and utterly interested. So she agreed to take me and my brother down there. And for those of you who don't know about Unity for Orphans, so they are a Christian-based organization who provides clothes, hygiene products, sanitary items, and whatever the orphanages need at that particular time. And because most Latin American countries do not have healthcare or welfare systems, private orphanages are normal. They travel all over the world, and this particular group that we went only goes out of San Diego. So they go from San Diego, they walk through the border to Tijuana, and then drive over to Baja. So the day came for my mom, my brother, and I, and we woke up extremely early and drove down to meet the group in San Diego. Now, before we got to the border, we stopped at this smaller park so that we could gather all the items that everybody had brought and put them into small luggages that would be taken individually across the border. So everybody would be taking one luggage to walk across. And once we got everything together, we prayed, we asked for God's protection, and we started towards the border. And I'm gonna skip through all the boring border crossing stuff because you guys don't really care about that, and it was very simple. You just kind of go through and that's it. And so once we got on the other side, we were told to wait like roughly 200 feet from the border on this little street under an overpass. So we waited under this overpass for about 20 minutes, and then all of a sudden this blue school bus pulled up in front of us, and it looked like the blue school bus from Nacho Libre. Like, that's a weird connection, but that's what it reminded me of when I saw it. And they told us they were ready to take us to the orphanage, and so we put all of our stuff in the bus, we got in, and we headed towards the orphanage. The drive to the orphanage was pretty long. It was about 30 to 40 minutes, but we were driving through like hills and mountains to get there. Like, it was a long, bumpy ride. It was kind of scary if you don't like driving, because sometimes we were looking over the coast, the Baja coast. So it was very cool. But yeah, the orphanage is located on a peninsula, and they are one of the only things in one of the only buildings in like a 5 to 10 mile radius. So it was hard to kind of drive to go get them because the roads weren't really clean roads, they were dirt roads. And so when we finally got to the orphanage, we got out and we noticed how beautiful the area was, because since it's located on a peninsula, you can see the beautiful Baja coast. And the shore was maybe 15 minutes away from the orphanage, so if the kids wanted to go to the beach, the headmasters, the people caring for them, could take them down there and they could have a beach day. And so once everybody got off the bus, we noticed how pretty it was, and then we started unloading the bus and taking the luggages over to the orphanage, and we set them in the courtyard. And once we got to the courtyard, we were greeted by the two headmasters, so their names were Maria and Liliana. And they told us they had created this orphanage because they recognized the growing population of homeless young children with no families, food, shelter, or clothes throughout the region. And they also told us about some of the activities that the children participate in the small towns surrounding them. So they have soccer teams that the guys or the girls could participate in, either of them could, so they could be physical and see other children their age in their towns. And they also provide education, so the kids go to the schools in the towns from, I think it was kinder to 8th grade, and then high school was optional if the child wanted to pursue it, or it could be paid for. And most of the time, these children do not get adopted, so they will spend their whole lives there. Lives meaning from till they get when they are 18. When they're 18, if they have a job to provide for themselves, then they are able to leave. And some even come back and support the orphanages when they're old enough, and they bring supplies and they hang out with the kids and they talk to the two headmasters. So moving on to after the introductions, we were invited to play with the children or assist the women in the nursery with the newborns. And this is when my experience on this trip changed. I met a little girl about 6 years old named Dulce. And for those of you who don't know or haven't taken Spanish before with Miss Taneski, not yet, Dulce means sweet. And that could have not better described her. She was one of the sweetest little girls I have ever met in my entire life, and I was so glad that I got to meet her and connect her out of all the other children. Like, I was given her, not given, but we kind of met together, and even though we could barely understand each other, her not being able to understand or speak any English, and me barely being able to understand and speak Spanish, we immediately connected. And then one of the headmasters said in Spanish to all the children that they had about an hour to play with their new friends. So she immediately grabbed my hand and brought me around one of the other sides of the buildings, because they had 3 main buildings in the orphanage. The one for sleeping, one for church, and then one for food. And she took me to the room where she slept with about 11 other children, because there were 11 beds in that room, and that room was very small. And she grabbed my hand and she pulled me to her bed and she patted the bed, wanting me to sit down. So I sat down, and then she got up and walked over to the corner where I think they kept all of their toys, and it was just one small little cardboard box in the corner. And she pulled out one Barbie doll. It was just one, it only had one t-shirt on, and it was very dirty, and I think that was her only toy. And then she came back to me and just sat down and started playing with it by herself. And so I kind of sat there. I didn't really know if I should play with her or not, and so I interacted with her a little bit. and kids would be coming in and out of the room, and she paid no attention to them. She would just kind of look at me every once in a while, and we just sat there for about 30 minutes. And then finally she went to the box, pulled out another toy, which I don't think was hers, but I think she just wanted me to play with her, and gave it to me. And then we played together for another 30 minutes. And then after some time, she got bored, and she grabbed my hand and pulled me out to the courtyard. And some kids were playing soccer with some of the other people in my group, and there was jump rope with the girls on the other side. And she wanted to play jump rope, so she grabbed my hand and pulled me over to where they were playing jump rope, and we jumped rope maybe for about another 20 minutes until the headmaster said that it was lunchtime and that we had to go into their lunch hall. So after we went in and ate the meal that they provided for us and for the kids, they told us that we had some time to spend with the children before one final activity, and then before we put everything away and would leave. And so I was like, okay, so I really want to go and get a picture with her so that I can keep and remember her just in case I don't come back. So I walk up to Dulce and I pull out my phone, and she immediately looks at it, and her eyes are just like wide open, and it's like she's entranced with my phone. And I notice, and so I open Snapchat and turn on the filters, and I give them to her, and I give my phone to her. And she was on my phone playing with Snapchat for probably about 40 minutes. She would go through all of the filters individually, and then take a picture, and then show me, and then delete it, because she didn't really know how to save it, but you know, yeah, besides the point. And she would go through all the filters, and she would just show me and then continue. And some other kids would also come by wanting to see what she was doing, because they had no idea what a phone was either. And she would just kind of shoo them away. She would tell them no, the phone was hers, and she wanted them all to go away. And I thought that was the funniest thing, and so inspiring, at least for me, and so sad. It was like mixed emotions, because all of us take for granted our phone. It's on us almost 24/7. We can't separate ourselves from our phones. And I was glad that I had it on me with that moment, because it just made her so happy, and it was so nice to hear her laughing, because I can't imagine how much happiness these kids get in this orphanage. I mean, they have activities and they get to hang out with their kids, but being able to see a phone when you've never have seen one is just, I can't imagine how she must have felt when she saw it. It must have been just completely like out of that world from her. And so I was just so glad that I was able to give her that. And it was hard for me to get my phone back from her too, because she did not want to give it back. So after I finally did get it back, we had one final activity for them, which was not painting cookies, but decorating cookies with icing and sprinkles. And some of them had fun, and some of them didn't. Some of them just ate the cookies, which was fine. So we finished that activity, and we were getting ready to help them sort away all of the items we had brought and put it away, and then get ready to leave. And so after we put all the items away, I remember going to look for Dulce because I wanted to give her a hug before I left. And so when I looked for her, I saw her run towards me, and she gave me a big hug and then said something in Spanish. And one of our group members who speaks Spanish overheard what she said and told me that she said she wanted me to come back really soon. She said, please come back soon. And I didn't understand it at that moment, but after we finally left, I realized how sad what she said really was. Most of these kids don't get to connect with other people or have a relationship or get to see new things like she did with the phone. And they don't get to leave. Some of them will stay there their whole lives. So when we would show up, our group, that was like the highlight of their year, because they would get new clothes, they'd get good food from people making food in the towns, and new toys, clothes, new products, new everything. And so it was like Christmas for them when we would show up. And that's when I realized I wanted to be a student missionary, not as a job, but as something to do so that I can interact and change some other kid's life in different parts of the world. And I wanted to be a student missionary. So since that time, I have visited that orphanage every year after the year that I went. And it has now been 4 years, excluding last year, which is really sad. I didn't get to see her last year. And I have been able to see Dulce and other kids in that orphanage grow up into young teens and young adults. Like Dulce, this year, she will be 11. And I can't believe that, because she was so tiny when I met her. Like, she was very, very, very short. And I have also visited some parts of Cuba and El Salvador, which I've been very blessed to be able to go see. And going to these orphanages and seeing these children helped me grow my relationship with Christ. They remind me to thank Him every day for the privilege that I have and the things that come with it. And through Christ, I am able to share His love to these children and tell them how much they are loved by God every single day. And I have 2 verses which I think go really well with my story. And the first one is found in 1 Samuel 12:24, and it reads, "But be sure to fear the Lord and serve him faithfully with all your heart. Consider what great things he has done for you." And the second is from 1 Peter 4:10, and it says, "Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to share and serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in various forms." So you might be wondering, what's the takeaway from all of this? So I encourage each and every one of you to find your way of serving Christ. Whether it be participating in church activities, serving your community, or going on a month-long trip to a orphanage or some town in a international part of the world. It will help you strengthen your relationship with Christ. It helped me gain my relationship back. And I'm very grateful that I was able to go on that trip because it helped me restore my relationship. I also encourage you to find someone who shares the same passions. Being part of a community who understands your way of serving Christ will allow you to open up and give more to your community or service that you are participating in. And one more thing I wanted to show you before I finish my talk was, this is what I was given. Maybe you can see it, maybe you cannot, it might be backwards, and it has my name on it. It says Unity for Orphans, and it was from the first time I went. And I keep this all the time because it reminds me that this is how I got my relationship back. And I thank God every day that I was able to go and experience that. And I hope that he can do the same with one of you and you can strengthen your relationship back. So yeah, that's about it. And I hope you enjoyed my story. And yeah, bye.
Wake up and get yourself to church, yeah.